I've always believed that sacrifices are the essence of parenting, but some sacrifices are too much to ask, even from a mother. My name is Elaine, and I raised my daughter, Sophia, practically on my own after her father, Derek, walked out on us when she was 8. You'd think such a betrayal would bond us even closer, but as Sophia grew up, I realized that life doesn't always reward effort with loyalty. The real test of that came just a few months ago, leading up to her college graduation. But first, let me rewind a little to provide some context. When Derek left, it wasn't just me he abandoned. He also left behind a mountain of debt and a broken family. I worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. I never complained, though, because I wanted Sophia to have the best. I wanted her to see that even when life gets tough, you can make it work. However, when Derek moved in with her, a much younger woman named Monica, who had been his assistant, it crushed me. Sophia, at first, shared my anger and resentment. She was just a kid then, and she couldn't understand why her dad had traded our family for a woman who couldn't even spell commitment. Over time, though, Derek worked his charm. He bought Sophia gifts, promised her lavish vacations, and played the cool dad role while I was stuck being the one enforcing curfews and making her do her homework. By the time she was in high school, their relationship had thawed. I told myself it was good for her to have her father in her life, even if he didn't deserve her forgiveness. When college applications rolled around, Sophia had her heart set on a prestigious university. I was so proud of her for dreaming big. But then came the tuition bill, a staggering amount that I couldn't possibly cover on my own. Derek had made it clear he wouldn't be contributing. Apparently, Monica's taste for expensive handbags outweighed the importance of their daughter's education. Sophia came to me one night with a bold, desperate idea. "Mom," she said, "you could sell the brooch." The brooch. The thought made my stomach drop. It wasn't just any piece of jewelry. It was a family heirloom passed down for generations. My grandmother had worn it on her wedding day, as had my mother. It was supposed to be mine one day, too, but I didn't wear it because it was waiting for Sophia. I explained this to her gently, but her response shocked me. "So you'd rather keep some old piece of jewelry than see me go to my dream school?" I was stunned. "Sophia, it's not just a piece of jewelry. It's part of our family history. I've worked hard to give you everything, and I'll continue to do so, but this is different." She stormed off, furious. Over the next few weeks, she barely spoke to me, and when she did, it was sharp and dismissive. I tried to reason with her, but she wouldn't hear it. It broke my heart, but I told myself she'd understand one day. Or so I thought. The week of her college graduation arrived. She was graduating with honors, and I couldn't have been prouder. I asked her about the details, eager to plan the day and celebrate her achievement. That's when she dropped the bombshell. "You don't need to come," she said, her tone icy. "What?" I blinked, sure I had misheard. "I've already given my ticket to Monica," she said, her words dripping with venom. "She's been more supportive than you lately." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "Monica? Your father's mistress? How can you say that after everything I've done for you?" "You didn't help me when it mattered most," she snapped. "Monica encouraged me to go to school, and she even helped me with money for books. She deserves to be there more than you." Tears stung my eyes, but I held them back. I couldn't let her see how deeply she'd hurt me. "Sophia, I've done nothing but love you and sacrifice for you. This is beyond cruel." She didn't flinch. "Well, maybe if you'd sold the brooch, we wouldn't be having this conversation." I didn't argue further. I didn't want to say something I'd regret, but inside, I was shattered. The day of her graduation came, and while Sophia celebrated with Derek, Monica, and their friends, I stayed home. I told myself I didn't need to be there, that I could be proud of her from a distance. But the betrayal cut deep. That's when an unexpected ally stepped in, Derek's father, Charles. Charles and I had always gotten along. He was a kind, no-nonsense man who had been just as appalled as I was when Derek left. He reached out to me the day after the graduation. "I heard what happened," he said, his voice full of sympathy. "Elaine, I want you to know, I'm not letting this slide." Charles, it's not your fight, I said, though I appreciated his support. Maybe not, he said, but I'm making it mine. What Charles did next would change everything, and it was a lesson neither Derek nor Sophia would ever forget. A few days after Sophia's graduation, I tried to push through the sting of betrayal by throwing myself into work and hobbies. But no matter how busy I kept myself, the thought of Monica, of all people, sitting in my place at Sophia's side made my blood boil. Yet, there was little I could do. She'd made her choice, and I had to live with it. Then Charles called. Elaine, he said firmly, I need you to come to dinner this Friday. Don't ask questions, just come. I hesitated. Charles had always been straightforward, but his tone suggested he had something up his sleeve. Dinners? I asked cautiously. With who? With me, he replied, and a few other people who need to hear some hard truths. Curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed. Friday rolled around, and I found myself pulling up to Charles's grand, old-style house. It was a place I used to visit often during the earlier years of my marriage to Derek. As I stepped inside, I was greeted by the unmistakable aroma of Charles's famous roast. But the warm welcome was short-lived. Sitting at the dining table were Sophia, Derek, and Monica. My stomach twisted at the sight of them, but I forced myself to stay calm. Good, you're here, Charles said, ushering me in. Now we can begin. What is this? Derek asked, his tone already defensive. An ambush. Call it a family meeting, Charles said, pouring himself a glass of wine. Because it's time some things were said and heard. I sat down quietly, unsure of what Charles had planned, but trusting him enough to go along with it. He began by addressing Sophia directly. I hear congratulations are in order. Graduating with honors is no small feat. I'm proud of you. Sophia beamed, clearly caught off guard by the praise.
Thank you, Grandpa.
But, he continued, I'm also deeply disappointed. Her smile faltered. Disappointed? Why? Charles leaned forward, his gaze steady. Because you chose to invite Monica to your graduation instead of your mother. The woman who raised you, sacrificed for you, and loved you unconditionally. You spat in her face, Sophia. Grandpa, that's not fair. Sophia protested, her cheeks flushing. Mom refused to sell the brooch. She didn't support me when I needed her most. Charles barked a laugh, shaking his head. Do you even hear yourself? Elaine worked her fingers to the bone to give you a good life. She didn't have to sell that brooch. It's your family's legacy, and it was meant for you one day. But you let your father and Monica manipulate you into thinking money was more important than love and loyalty. Monica, who had been sitting quietly, finally spoke up. I think this is all a bit dramatic, don't you? Sophia had every right to choose who she wanted at her graduation. Charles turned to her, his expression icy. Monica, with all due respect, stay out of this. You've already done enough damage to this family. Excuse me, she snapped, her voice dripping with indignation. You heard me, Charles said, unflinching. You wrecked Derek's marriage, and now you've poisoned my granddaughter against her own mother. I won't stand for it. Derek, predictably, jumped to Monica's defense. Dad, that's enough. Monica's done nothing wrong. If anything, Elaine's the one who's always playing the victim. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Playing the victim, Derek? You left me to pick up the pieces after your affair and saddled me with all the responsibility. Don't you dare twist this around. The room fell silent for a moment before Charles spoke again. Elaine is right. Derek, you've been a coward for as long as I can remember, always looking for the easy way out. And now you've raised a daughter who thinks entitlement is a virtue. That ends today. Sophia's eyes welled up with tears. Grandpa, that's not fair. I've worked hard. Hard. Charles interrupted. You think you've worked hard? You don't know the meaning of the word. Hard is what your mother did to keep you clothed and fed. Hard is putting aside your own dreams to give your child a better future. And this is how you repay hers. Sophia looked down, her bravado crumbling under Charles's words. I didn't bring you here to humiliate you, he continued, his tone softening slightly. I brought you here because I love you, and I don't want you to ruin your relationship with the one person who will always be in your corner. Because believe me, Monica won't be around forever, and your father, well, let's just say he's not exactly reliable. Derek opened his mouth to protest, but Charles silenced him with a glare. Elaine, Charles said, turning to me, you've done more for this family than anyone else here, and it's about time you were recognized for it. I was stunned. Charles had always been kind to me, but this level of support was unexpected. Thank you, I said, my voice shaky. That means more than you know. Charles nodded before addressing Sophia one last time. It's up to you now, Sophia. You can either continue down this path of selfishness and ingratitude, or you can take a hard look at yourself and make things right with your mother. The choice is yours, but remember this. Bridges are much easier to burn than they are to rebuild. Sophia didn't say anything, but I could see the gears turning in her mind. For the first time in a long time, she looked genuinely remorseful. As I left Charles's house that night, I felt a strange mix of emotions, gratitude, sadness, and, perhaps, a glimmer of hope. Only time would tell if Sophia would take Charles's words to heart, but for now, I was content knowing that someone had finally stood up for me. Days turned into weeks after that dinner, and the tension between Sophia and me remained thick. I didn't expect an overnight miracle. Healing from something so deep required time, but I couldn't deny that part of me hoped Charles's words had planted a seed in Sophia's heart. Life moved forward, though not without its challenges. Sophia stopped calling, and my house felt quieter than ever. I'd walk past her childhood room, now empty and cold, and wonder if I had truly lost her forever. The memories of bedtime stories, laughter, and even teenage arguments haunted me. How had we come to this? One afternoon, I received an email from her university. Thinking it was some leftover administrative task from her graduation, I opened it without much thought. What I found nearly knocked the wind out of me. It was a notification about an unpaid balance on Sophia's tuition. Despite graduating, she still owed thousands of dollars. My first instinct was to panic. What if this hurt her credit? What if it stopped her from pursuing a future job or further studies? I debated calling her. It wasn't my problem. She'd made that abundantly clear when she chose Monica over me. Still, maternal instincts are hard to suppress. After much internal struggle, I decided to reach out. I sent her a short text. Sophia, I received an email about your unpaid tuition. Is everything okay? Hours passed without a response. Then, finally, my phone buzzed. Her reply was short and cold. That's fine. Don't worry about it. But I did worry. Despite everything, I couldn't help but feel responsible. She was my daughter, after all. The email didn't sit right with me, so I forwarded it to Charles. He called me immediately.
I'll handle this, he said.
His tone left no room for argument. 2 days later, Charles called me again, his voice tinged with frustration. Elaine, you won't believe this. Sophia took out additional loans without telling anyone. She lied about having it all under control. I wasn't entirely surprised, but the confirmation still stung. What does that mean for her now? It means she's in over her head. And guess who encouraged her to take those loans? Monica. Of course, it was Monica. The woman had spent years playing puppet master, and now my daughter was tangled in her strings. Charles sighed heavily. Elaine, I think it's time we confronted this head-on. Sophia needs to see the consequences of her choices. No more coddling. I agreed, though the thought of facing Sophia again filled me with dread. Still, Charles had a plan, and I trusted him. The following weekend, Charles arranged a family meeting at his house. This time, the guest list was smaller, just Sophia, Charles, and me. Derek and Monica were deliberately excluded. When Sophia arrived, she looked defensive, her arms crossed and her jaw set. What's this about? She asked, her eyes darting between us. Charles didn't waste time. Sophia, we need to talk about your financial situation. You're in trouble, and it's time you start taking responsibility. She rolled her eyes. I'm handling it, Grandpa. No, you're not, Charles said firmly. You've been lying to everyone, including yourself. Do you even realize what you've done? Sophia's face flushed with anger. Why do you even care? It's my life. It's your life, Charles agreed, but it's the legacy of this family too. You're squandering opportunities and burning bridges left and right. Do you know how many doors your mother tried to open for you? And you've slammed every single one in her face. Sophia's eyes flicked to me, her expression wavering. I didn't ask her to, she muttered. No, you didn't, I said, my voice calm but firm. But I did it because I love you, Sophia. Because I wanted you to have everything I didn't. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't respond. Charles leaned forward, his tone softer now. Sophia, you're at a crossroads. You can keep blaming your mother, Monica, and the world for your problems, or you can take a hard look in the mirror and decide to change. For the first time in what felt like forever, Sophia didn't argue. She just sat there, staring at the table, her shoulders slumped. I don't know how to fix this, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Charles reached out and placed a hand on hers. The first step is owning up to your mistakes. Apologize to your mother. Be honest about what you're going through. And let us help you, not Monica or anyone else with their own agenda. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Mom, she said, her voice trembling. I've been so awful to you. I didn't mean to. I cut her off gently. I know, Sophia. And I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't erase what's happened. We have to rebuild trust, and that's going to take time. It was a start, a fragile one, but a start nonetheless. Over the next few weeks, Sophia and I began to mend our relationship. She moved out of Monica's shadow, cutting ties with her stepmother entirely. It wasn't easy. Monica didn't let go without a fight, but Charles was there every step of the way, shielding Sophia from her manipulations. The financial situation took longer to resolve, but Sophia began working to pay off her debts, this time with a clear plan and a sense of accountability. Charles even stepped in to help her refinance the loans, ensuring she wasn't buried under interest rates. One day, as we were sorting through some old photos together, Sophia found a picture of me wearing the brooch. She held it up, her eyes brimming with guilt. I can't believe I almost made you sell this, she said softly. I smiled, placing a hand on hers. It's yours someday, Sophia. But not because you demand it, because you've earned it. She hugged me tightly, and for the first time in years, I felt like I had my daughter back. Despite the tentative progress Sophia and I had made, the journey to repair our relationship was far from over. For every step forward, there seemed to be a lingering shadow of mistrust and hesitation. It wasn't malicious. It was just years of damage that couldn't be undone with a single heartfelt conversation or a few shared moments. But life, in its unpredictable way, gave us an opportunity neither of us saw coming. One afternoon, as I was tidying up the house, a knock came at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and when I opened it, there stood Monica. Her presence was like a sudden storm cloud, darkening the mood instantly. She looked disheveled, her usual confident air replaced by desperation. Elaine, she began, her voice strained. I need to talk to you. Every fiber of my being told me to slam the door in her face, but curiosity, and perhaps a bit of pity, held me back. What could you possibly want from me, Monica? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She hesitated, wringing her hands. It's about Sophia. The mention of my daughter was enough to make me pause. I stepped aside, gesturing for her to come in. Monica didn't wait for a second invitation and entered, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. What's going on? I asked, crossing my arms. Monica sighed heavily and sat down on the edge of the couch. She's cut me off completely. Won't return my calls, won't answer my texts, nothing. I resisted the urge to smile. And why do you think that is? I don't know, Monica exclaimed, her frustration bubbling over. We were fine, closer than you two ever were, and now she's just gone. I stared at her, incredulous. Did she truly believe that? Did she not see the role she played in Sophia's downward spiral? But instead of berating her, I chose a different approach. Monica, you manipulated her, I said plainly. You used her to get back at me, to justify your actions with Derek. You turned her against her own family. She flinched but didn't argue. Instead, her face crumpled, and tears spilled over her perfectly lined eyes. I never meant for it to go this far, she admitted. I didn't want to be the villain. Her words caught me off guard. Monica, admitting fault? It felt surreal, but I wasn't about to let her off the hook so easily. You weren't the villain because of some cosmic accident, Monica. You made choices, selfish, hurtful ones. And now you're facing the consequences. She looked at me, her expression raw. Can you help me fix this? Please? I don't want to lose her. The audacity of her request left me momentarily speechless. She wanted me to help her repair the damage she'd done? Part of me wanted to laugh in her face, but another part, a quieter, softer part, felt a flicker of compassion. Monica, I said slowly, this isn't about what you want. It's about what Sophia needs. And right now, what she needs is space. She's rebuilding her life, and if you care about her, you'll respect that. She nodded reluctantly, wiping her tears. I just hope it's not too late. As Monica left, I couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter wasn't the end of her meddling. People like Monica didn't change overnight. Meanwhile, Sophia's progress was steady but fragile. She had landed an entry-level job at a publishing house, a small but promising step toward her dreams. Charles and I supported her from the sidelines, offering guidance without overstepping. One evening, she called me unexpectedly. Her voice was hesitant, almost shy. Mom, can I come over? I need to talk to you. Of course, sweetheart, I replied, my heart skipping a beat. When she arrived, she carried a small box in her hands. She sat down at the kitchen table, placing the box in front of her. I found this while I was packing up my things at Monica's, she said, her voice trembling. It's from Dad. My stomach tightened. Derek hadn't been a part of our lives for years, and I wasn't eager to revisit that chapter. But I nodded for her to continue. She opened the box, revealing a stack of old letters and a delicate silver necklace I hadn't seen in decades. He wrote these after the divorce, she explained. I never knew he felt this way. I picked up one of the letters, my hands trembling. Derek's handwriting was unmistakable. As I read the words, a wave of mixed emotions washed over me. Sadness, anger, and a touch of nostalgia. Why did Monica have these? I asked, my voice tight. Sophia looked down, ashamed. She said she kept them to remind herself of what he gave up for her. The cruelty of it made my blood boil. Derek had chosen Monica over his family, and now she was using his memory as a twisted trophy. But as much as it hurt, the letters also served as a reminder. Derek had made his choices, just as Monica had, and now it was up to Sophia to break free from their toxic influence. Mom, Sophia said, her voice breaking, I'm so sorry for everything. For blaming you, for pushing you away. I don't know how to make it right. I reached across the table, taking her hands in mine. We'll figure it out together, I said softly. The road ahead wasn't easy, but it was one we were finally walking together. Sophia began therapy, confronting the pain and confusion that had shaped her decisions. She apologized to Charles, who welcomed her back with open arms. As for Monica, she faded into the background, her influence over Sophia finally broken. It was a bittersweet victory, but one I wouldn't trade for anything. In the end, the brooch remained where it belonged, a symbol of resilience, love, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her daughter. The final chapter of this ordeal unfolded on an unseasonably warm autumn afternoon. Sophia and I were sitting on the back porch, sipping tea and watching the golden leaves drift to the ground. It had been months since we started rebuilding our relationship, and while the process was far from perfect, I could feel the distance between us shrinking with every shared moment. That's when Charles stepped outside, his phone in hand, his expression unreadable. Sophia, he said gently, you might want to hear this. He handed her the phone, where a news article was pulled up. As Sophia read, her face paled, her hands shaking slightly. Monica, she whispered, her voice barely audible. What about her? I asked, already bracing myself. Sophia handed me the phone, and I quickly scanned the article. Monica's name was plastered across the headlines, tied to a scandal involving fraud and embezzlement. She had been siphoning funds from the charities she worked for, funds meant for underprivileged families. The authorities were investigating, and the evidence against her was damning. She always talked about how much that charity meant to her, Sophia murmured, disbelief etched into her features. That wasn't about helping others, I said softly. It was about building an image. Monica's always cared more about appearances than substance. And now, the facade is crumbling. For a long moment, Sophia didn't respond. Then, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. Mom, I don't know why I ever trusted her over you. Her words hit me harder than I expected. For years, I had wished to hear her say something like that. But now that the moment had arrived, I realized it wasn't the victory I'd imagined. It doesn't matter anymore, sweetheart, I said, pulling her into a hug. What matters is where we go from here. The fallout from Monica's scandal was swift and brutal. Her social circle, built on shallow alliances, abandoned her almost immediately. She lost her job, her home, and her carefully curated reputation. But the most surprising revelation came a few weeks later, when Sophia received a letter in the mail. It's from her, Sophia said, holding the envelope as though it might explode. Do you want to read it? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She hesitated, then nodded. Together, we sat down and opened the letter. In it, Monica confessed to everything: the manipulation, the lies, the deliberate attempts to drive a wedge between Sophia and me. She admitted that she had seen Sophia as a pawn in her twisted game, a way to validate her choices and hurt me. I thought if I could make you love me more than you loved your mother, it would prove I wasn't the villain in this story, the letter read. But all I did was ruin your life and mine. I'm sorry, Sophia. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me someday. Sophia's hands trembled as she finished reading. What do I do with this? She asked, her voice breaking. That's up to you, I said gently. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean letting someone back into your life. It's about freeing yourself from their hold on you. She nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. Then, with a resolve I hadn't seen in her before, she folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. I think I'm done with her, she said. For good this time. As the weeks turned into months, Sophia and I continued to heal. She began to open up more about the pain and confusion she had carried for so long, the guilt of choosing sides in a battle she never asked to be part of, the lingering resentment toward Derek for abandoning us, and the misplaced trust she had given Monica. I listened without judgment, offering support when she needed it and space when she didn't. And in return, she began to see me not just as her mother, but as a person who had fought tooth and nail to keep our family afloat. One evening, as we were sorting through some old family photos, Sophia came across a picture of me wearing the brooch at my wedding. She held it up, studying it closely. You are so beautiful, she said softly. Thank you, I replied, my voice tinged with nostalgia. That day feels like a lifetime ago. She looked at me, her eyes filled with emotion. I think I understand now why the brooch means so much to you. It's not just a piece of jewelry. It's everything we've been through, everything we've survived. I nodded, tears welling up in my eyes. It's a reminder that no matter how hard things get, we always have the strength to carry on. She reached out and took my hand. I'm so sorry for everything, Mom. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm so grateful for it. You don't have to deserve it, Sophia, I said, squeezing her hand. You're my daughter. I'll always love you. In the end, the brooch stayed where it belonged, safe, cherished, and untouched by the chaos that had once threatened to tear us apart. It wasn't just a symbol of our family's history, it was a testament to our resilience, our love, and the unbreakable bond that had brought us back together. Monica faded into the background, a distant memory of a painful chapter that we had finally closed. And as Sophia and I moved forward, we did so with the knowledge that while our journey hadn't been easy, it had made us stronger than ever. Because in the end, family isn't about perfection. It's about forgiveness, understanding, and the willingness to fight for the people who matter most.